Welcome back. It's time for another edition of Silver and Black Today, an Audacy Sports original podcast covering the Las Vegas Raiders. Also, hello to our audience in Las Vegas on the radio. Yes, they're joining us on KDON 101.5 as well as the Bet 98.5 HD2. So always love talking to our Las Vegas audience. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas. Merry Christmas. And of course, now we start to chug towards the new year. So happy new year to you and yours out there. Hope you had a great holiday. And for those of you, again, I always remind people, especially since we're on the air in Las Vegas and my wife's family from Las Vegas grew up a service family. Thanks to all of you working through the holidays to keep everything moving for all of us. And that goes very much appreciated. Also, our video brought to you by our good friends at BetUS, where, again, we always tell you about an amazing promotion we have with them this season, 150% sign-up bonus. It's crunch time, folks. It's the playoffs coming up. We're into the last week, 2 weeks of the season, and if you haven't done this already, go do it. They're still offering this to you. It's 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on that first deposit. That is YouTube 150 is the promo code that you can use from here at Silver and Black Today. YouTube 150, get that extra dough and get in on some of this action as we get towards the end of the season. Skockle Branson, Mo Moten back with you. We are your GQ model guys. Taking you, well, not quite, but hey, you know what? At least Mo is. I'm just the old dude on the show, but we're here talking Raiders football as we chug towards the end of what's been a disappointing season, but lots to talk about this week. And again, my partner, Mo Moten, he's a senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report. If you're not reading him, we will find you because you're missing out on great NFL goodness, not just Raiders, but also everything NFL he covers over at Bleacher Report. Fantasy, betting, you name it. Make sure you follow him on X.com, Mo Moten, Moemoton. I am at LV Gully. You catch my work up on sportsnot.com, where Mo is also a Raiders columnist. So if you want Raider-specific stuff, dropped another great one this week as well. So make sure you check that out. The show is SNB Today. Reminder, please subscribe to the audio wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black Today. Don't forget to rate and review. Also, subscribe to video wherever you are. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe and notifications bell. That way you know whenever we are live. Again, hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. Of course, we had 2 Christmas Day football games on Netflix. People were really interested to see what would happen with Netflix after the disaster of the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight. But, Mo, they did well. There was no issues with streaming the games that I'm aware of. The games themselves, not so good. We had some blowouts and surprises. Baltimore exerted themselves and really showed, I think, that they are just, to be contended with in the AFC, despite their history and problems in the playoffs. They certainly did that. But, Mo, did you get a chance to watch both games on Christmas Day?
Watched both games, and I will say that I expected blowouts in both games. Yeah. I'm not trying to toot my horn as sharp as a sharp picker, but
you're smarter than me then.
Look, if you just really quick, if you look at the history of the Steelers, they don't play well on short weeks. They have a poor record on Thursday night football games. So you can imagine what's going to happen when you're playing on a Wednesday. I guess a team that's trying to get the number 1 seed. So you do the math there, a team that's motivated to get the 1 seed versus a team that plays traditionally poorly on a short week. What do you think you're going to get? The other game, the Texans are losing offensive playmakers left and right. They cannot get any higher. Before that game, they couldn't get any higher than maybe the 2 seed. So I want to say they had nothing to play for, but they had a reason to kind of pull it back a little bit and make sure they just get healthy for the playoffs, while the Baltimore Ravens were chasing the AFC North title. Again, there's a mismatch in motivation for that game. The Ravens are going for the division crown. The Texans are already locked in to the 2 to 4 seed, and they can't get the 1 seed. So it was just, I felt like I watched the games hoping that would get a better product, obviously, a more competitive action. That didn't happen. And you saw the Ravens and the Chiefs rout their opponents and move up in seeding.
Yeah, much different than the Raider-Chief game last Christmas, which I know all of you are familiar with. But the Pittsburgh game, Mo, I think this is an example because in our editors' picks, our pick contest, which I'm now 2 games out of the lead, we've been tied, the 3 of us who pick the games up on Sportsnot. You know, we've all had a good season actually, but I took Pittsburgh. I think it was out of an emotional And of course, you can't do that when you're picking games, whether it's against the spread or just straight up. Because I was thinking to myself, this Chiefs voodoo has to end at some point, but
Jeez,
I was
Voodoo.
wrong. But I mean, you point to the data, of course, with the Steelers and short weeks and all that kind of stuff. But the Chiefs just, I know Raider fans hate to hear it, but damn, I mean, this thing just keeps going for them, and you keep expecting the floor to drop out, and it doesn't.
The return of Marquise Brown helps. Travis Kelce woke up. And I think I'm not saying I know this for sure, but it's a long season. And the Chiefs are pretty much thinking we're going to make the playoffs. It's just a matter of what seed we're going to be in. And I think Travis Kelce's lull between October to that game yesterday, I don't want to say they were saving him, but he makes sure to remind people that he can still play at a high level in those big games. Again, the Chiefs were going for the number 1 seed, home field advantage, and I think they really wanted that number 1 seed, that bye week, because it gives Patrick Mahomes some rest. It gives Chris Jones some rest. Chris Jones missed that game yesterday because of a calf injury. It gives him some rest. So it gives the Chiefs now a chance to rest their stars in Week 18 against the Denver Broncos. And then they have that bye week. So they have some of their players are going to get 2-3 weeks rest before they play another full football game. So again, the Chiefs are the class of the league still, and that's the way it's going to be. And it looks like it's going to come down in the AFC to Chiefs, Ravens, or Bills.
Yeah.
So that game, assuming the Bills and the Ravens advance after their first round matchups, after their wild card round matchups, the winner of that game is going to have to give their best blow, throw their best punch at the reigning champions. And we saw the Ravens almost knock off the Chiefs in the season opener this year, if not for Isaiah Likely's toe not being in bounds. And we saw the Bills beat the Chiefs earlier this year, but we all know the Bills usually get the best of the Chiefs in the regular season, but in the playoffs, that's when the Chiefs get the best of the Bills. So we'll see how that works out.
And that's where I can't bet against the Chiefs because, again, and you know me, Mo, I've shared this many, many times on the show, and you know this too from our conversations. I'm a big Lamar Jackson fan. I love Lamar Jackson, but I will admit, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens don't do well in the playoffs. We know this. They have all the talent. He's on track. And I know a lot of people would argue, but if you look at the numbers, Lamar Jackson's the MVP again. I mean, I know, listen, I love Josh Allen too. I mean, he's amazing, okay? And he's right up there too. But if you look at the numbers, it's pretty clear. But Baltimore, it's that he's got to get over the hump in the playoffs. And that hump is going to be maybe the Bills, definitely the Chiefs, of course, because I think everything going through Arrowhead again, right? There's a slight chance that somebody beats them at home, but man, it's going to be tough. And the stats, and it's so demoralizing, I think, for Raider fans to see the Chiefs do this again and to have the AFC Championship game have to go through, if they, of course, win, through Kansas City yet again. It's like, when is this going to end? Because a lot of people said, remember, oh, there's never going to be another Patriots-like dynasty. Now, again, that was 6 Super Bowls. I understand the Chiefs are at 3, but they're going to be in contention for a 4th. And man, it's tough. And I think that if you're the Raiders too, we talk about this all the time on the show, Mo, you bring it up a lot as well, is this division. The Chiefs are there. So the Chiefs are the top target in the entire conference, let alone the division. And then you look at where the Broncos are. The Chargers are better. Probably not going anywhere this year, but it's tough, man. So with the Raiders going into this offseason, coaching, player personnel, front office, everything, excuse me, they're going to have to make decisions based on the fact that they have got to try, as Mike Mayock said 4 years ago, you got to catch the Kansas City Chiefs.
To tie this back to the Raiders, this is why I feel like the Raiders have to take a big swing at the quarterback position. Because you can beat the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens in the regular season with a game-managing quarterback. The Raiders beat the Ravens in Week 2 this year. Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier in the show the Raiders did beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Christmas, but what would happen if those two teams were to play in the playoffs? Playoffs are a different animal. There are different speeds in the NFL. There's preseason football. There's regular season football. There's playoff football. There's a 4th level, actually. Then there's Super Bowl football. So the Raiders have to take a big swing at this point, in my opinion. You're not going to get there penny pinching and trying to cut corners. Try to get your quarterback if possible, and pair him up with a top level head coach. I think that's the other part of this equation that has to be talked about. And you brought this up when I said the Raiders can turn this around pretty quickly, and you emphasized coaching is part of that equation. And it absolutely is. I mean, look at the teams at the top of the ladder. And I understand Sean McDermott doesn't coach offense, but he did bring in Joe Brady. And as I've said over and over again, part of being a quality head coach is not just calling timeouts, knowing when to go for it on fourth down. It's building a quality coaching staff. That is probably should be at the top of the conversation. You know, especially if your head coach is not calling offensive plays, it's building a quality staff. Because if you don't build a quality staff, that means you may have a bad defensive coordinator. Your defense may be lacking. You may have a bad offensive coordinator. We saw how that impacts teams, including bottom tier teams like the Raiders this year. Mm-hmm. So if your head coach is good, even good at the X's and O's or good at calling offensive plays, he also has to be pretty good at building a staff, because if he's lacking in that area, your team is going to be weak in some key spots. And come playoff time, you're going to be like, why is our defense giving up yards on third down? Why is our special teams unit so bad? You know, why is this position not playing so well? We need to replace our cornerbacks coach or our running backs coach, whatever the case may be. But I think one thing we have to really focus on is not just the head coach, but who is he going to bring in with him?
Yeah, it's key. And that leads us to the next point of discussion, Mo, because I look at the situation that happened right before Christmas. Maxx Crosby on his Rush podcast, great podcast, by the way, I love listening to it. But Max made some comments about the future, right? And it came up under the context of Myles Garrett, who, of course, with the Cleveland Browns, I think the best defensive player at that position in the league, is kind of uncertain about his future in Cleveland because he would like to be more well compensated for what he does, and he's got a great case for it, which led to the discussion with Maxx Crosby around the same thing. And that's not to be surprised. Hey, look, you know, players never on this show, you'll never hear any of us talk about players not getting what they deserve. And if that means a new contract, great. You know, if you deserved it, if you have shown through your play, especially league wide, that you are a top player and you deserve it, then you should get you should be well compensated. But I want to play this video, Mo, and when we come back, we'll talk about what he says. This is 2 videos. You've seen some of the shorter ones online, but I'm going to play the whole minute and 15 seconds because there's some context behind it all too. The first one, and then the second one, I think, is the one that a lot of Raider Nation was talking about. So here's Maxx Crosby talking about his future, perhaps, with the Las Vegas Raiders.
You know what I mean? Like my contract situation, like I have no more guaranteed money. There's a lot of different things. Like obviously, you know, there's gonna be a lot of things that need to be talked about, and I'm looking forward to those conversations. So yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Like I'm really looking forward to this offseason, the process, and I will say, like on top of it, like the Raider fans have been dope and I love them to death. Like that's one thing through everything. Like the fans have truly since day one, like embraced me and being in their corner. And I think it's been the dopest shit. Like even with my injuries and all the shit, like the support has been like the coolest shit ever. And so, yeah, there's so many different things that got to be talked about. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Years of inconsistency, you know what I mean? It's new coaches every other year and this and this and that and new teammates. And there's been plenty of times where I'm like, damn, like this D-line is cold. And then I come back and every single one of them's gone. You know what I mean? And it's like, what the you know what I mean? And then it just, there's on and on and on. There's a lot of things. So it's just like, it's tough, bro.
All right, there you go, Mo. Maxx Crosby's comments there, and there's a lot to pick apart there. Actually, it's not. I know a lot of people watch it and they may, oh, he's gone, or oh, he's complaining he wanted AP and all that stuff. And we're going to get into that because I think there are several issues here. Number one is, of course, there's always something with timing, right? Because you talk about this, and we saw, for example, over the weekend or over the holiday, the fact that Pete Carroll wants to come back from to coaching, Adam Schefter reported, and he was interested in the Bears job. And then Mike Florio took a shot at Schefter, saying that this is the agent and it's a quid quo pro, all this kind of stuff. But, Maxx Crosby, there's no doubting his desire to win. His desire, I believe, to be a Raider for life. He said it. He's got it tattooed all over his body. There's no question about that. First of all, I want to start with the timing of this. He's out for the rest of the season, missing obviously the last 3 games with that ankle injury and having surgery. Mo, first let me get your kind of insight on the timing of this coming, where it's at, and then we'll get into some more of the specific comments.
So one of the things that he said that caught a lot of people's attention is he doesn't have any guaranteed money on this contract. I don't think that was by accident that he put that out there, right? So there's a contractual money issue tied to this. Obviously, he wants a new deal. No player of his caliber is going to play without guaranteed money. So regardless of what, the Raiders are going to have to redo his contract. But I will also say that we know who Maxx Crosby is. The league knows who Maxx Crosby is. It doesn't take long to figure out he's one of the best pass rushers in the league. He's going to get paid one way or another, whether the Raiders pay him or another team pays him. He's going to get maximum dollars if he wants it. Him mentioning or talking about Myles Garrett's situation is big for me because as far as the timing is concerned, you're going into an offseason, you're going into another rebuild because chances are your coach is going to get fired. At the very least, you're going to have a new OC and you're going to have roster turnover. He talked about the roster turnover again. So I think he wants to hear a winning plan for the Raiders going into the offseason. I think he's making it clear that, yes, I want to be here because one of the things that Myles Garrett said that he's loyal to the organization, but he wants to be a winner. And I think Maxx Crosby shares that same mindset. So coming off of the surgery, knowing that he's not going to be in his prime forever, watching Josh Jacobs go to the Green Bay Packers and play well and win football games and now go to the playoffs, he's probably thinking, look, I'm loyal to the Raiders through and through, but show me a winning plan so that we can contend for the playoffs, so that my play and our team could be contending and playing football. So time is ticking. Father Time is undefeated. Comes for everyone, right? So he knows he's gonna get his money. Now he needs to know if the Raiders are all in on winning football so that he can play at a high level in the playoffs.
Well, let me ask you this, Mo, because I think that we get listeners all the time, and we've had calls here as well where they've talked about, hey, you know what, I love Maxx Crosby, but that we should just trade him because we're going to rebuild and we can get draft picks, blah, blah, blah. We've always said, no, you build around franchise type players. And yes, you need the quarterback. Again, if you guys don't know that, you need a quarterback. But Maxx Crosby is a Raider through and through, and fans love him. He obviously praised the fans there because the relationship between the two is very, very special. That said, like you pointed out, he needs to be compensated and he needs to know that things are going direct. But we also heard this from, and I'm not comparing the two, just to be clear, we heard the same thing from Davante Adams. Remember when there was the coaching change? Oh, I want to know what the plan is and all that kind of stuff. And then you toss in the very unique part of this, which I think a lot of fans caught on to. And to me, it's a little bit oversimplistic, but I understand. And it was in my mind too, which is he talks about coaching turnover. He's absolutely correct. But he fought for this coach, and this coach has not done a job well enough, in my view, to keep his job. So, it's sort of like people are kind of like, well, you're being a crybaby now. You wanted this, now you got it, and now you're complaining about it.
Yeah, and I totally get that angle, right? So I'll break it down this way, right? Maxx Crosby was very vocal about wanting Antonio Pierce to keep his job. He didn't request a trade officially, formally, but he basically said everything is on the table if AP isn't back yet. So in a way, in a roundabout way, you could say he kind of pushed Mark Davis and that contingency in the direction to hire Antonio Pierce. So I said on social media that Maxx Crosby, I don't blame Maxx Crosby for wanting some form of stability and keeping the same head coach because he talked about the turnover, right? So you want to keep the head coach that helped turn things around last year. But at the same time, with the things that you want in life, there comes some unintended consequences to it. So you wanted AP because of the stability portion of it and what he did last year. But what comes with that is AP's inexperience, game management, the poor coaching staff assemblance that he's had and had to fire coaches. So while you wanted AP, you get the bad that comes along with that, and he can't complain about that. But I think also you have to look at it as he was viewing it from we just don't want to start over at the head coaching position anymore.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to have a new head coach every 2 to 3 years. We want some form of stability. And ironically, it seems like you and I agree with this, Scott, that they're going to probably fire AP anyway. So he's not going to get the stability that he wanted. But like I said, he's going to get his money. It's just, one, is he going to get what he wants from Tom Telesco, Tom Brady, whoever's making these decisions? And two, is he going to like what he hears going forward? As far if the Raiders do fire AP, is he going to be on board with the new head coach? Is he going to have, I don't want to say is he going to have a say, because I think at this point when Tom Brady takes over, it's going to be more on Tom Brady. But is he going to be on board with the new hire, and is he going to just say, okay, whatever you guys decide, I'll ride along with that? Or is he going to say, I don't like this hire and I want out of here?
Right. And I think to your point, and I defend Maxx Crosby in this position. I understand, like you said, I understand the fans' reaction, but I also understand Maxx Crosby is a smart dude. I think he wasn't doing it because he didn't mean it, but he particularly and specifically, I should say, talked about how he loves the Raiders fans and the special relationship he has with them. And what he was saying there was, hey, I got to do my business. I want you to know that this is not because I don't love you. I don't love the Raiders. But I got to think about myself, because it is a business. Just like any of us, if we have a boss that we love, or we work somewhere and, man, every month you're getting a new manager. I mean, think about that. Let's say you work in retail, right? Or you work in construction. You got a new foreman every freaking time you got a project. Instead of having stability, it gets old, because you get to know the new person and you get to like them. You get to know their family, and then suddenly, boom, gone. Or they bring in somebody and they suck, right? That type of thing happens. So I defend Maxx Crosby. I do not fault him at all in doing this. Yes, the chickens have come to roost when it comes to the AP demand, and that's what it was. I mean, let's face it, it was a demand. But now I agree with you. I think, first of all, they got to pay him, and I think they will. And I would. And number two is, I think as long he will feel good about that if they come to him with an offer that respects where he is in the league, and then and he's on board with what's happened. You know, this is the type of post-season meeting that a GM has with a star player, and I would hope that, you know, if Tom Brady's going to be as involved as we think he is, that, you know, Brady and Telesco sit down with him, especially if they're changing coaches, and say, hey, look, first of all, we're going to get something done with you. We're talking to your agent. We're working on it. But here's what we're thinking. Here's who we're talking to. Here's what we're thinking about. And this is what we want to do here. Here is our plan. And if Maxx Crosby feels good about that, he'll say, great. If not, he'll say, hey, you know what? Thanks. I'm glad you want to pay me, but I don't want to be here another 5 years of struggling. So if you can deal me, you can deal me. I'm not saying he's going to do that. But to me, that's the process. Is it not, Mo?
It is, and I think part of why some of Raider Nation is a bit nervous about what he said is it's kind of like him saying, hey, guys and gals out there, I want to be here, but I need a new contract that suits my desires, and I need to hear the plan. And if one of those things don't jive with what I'm thinking, or if I don't like something in one of those areas, then I could be gone. Yep. That's how I saw it. I didn't see it as him saying, you know, get me out of here. And I think a lot of people were panicking or, you know, running away with some of the comments there. But I think there is an aspect of, look, I need two things. I need a contract that well compensates me, and I need to hear a winning game plan. And I think those are going to be the two things that we're going to be talking about in the offseason. I don't think the money part of it will be an issue. I think it's going to be more about the plan. Because, of course, everyone's going to say it's all about money. It's all about money. And if it was all about money, as I've said, Scott, everyone knows Maxx Crosby is worth the money. Whether he gets paid by the Raiders or any of the other 31 teams, he's going to get paid. Yeah. That's not the problem. He knows he's going to get paid. I think he generally wants to be a Raider, but I think he wants to say, look, I want to be able to play in the playoffs. Think about this. Maxx Crosby drafted in 2019, right? He's played at a high level ever since. One winning season, one playoff appearance, one and done, 0 playoff wins. Players love money, but they also love winning football games. And again, I want to bring this up. I'm sure he looks over at Josh Jacobs, who's in his same draft class, going to Green Bay, and now on his way to the playoffs is saying, man, I love the Raiders, but I also want to play in some meaningful games in January. Yeah, I don't think that's out of the realm or something that you should think, oh, he just wants money. Players want to win football games too. And in Maxx Crosby, he talks about being great and being legendary. Being great and being legendary, part of that is winning and these critical football games in January in the playoffs. And you can't do that if you're stuck on a team that's struggling just to get to winning seasons.
And that's why he compares himself to Myles Garrett too, because Myles Garrett is in the same position. That Browns defense has been phenomenal. They just can't get their offense right. And so they've been a terrible team. They spent money on Deshaun Watson, didn't work out. So they are floundering. So if you're Myles Garrett, and that's why I think their situations are very similar, because they're having the turnover. Now they've had a head coach now with Stefanski there, who's won coach of the year and all that kind of stuff. And they've been kind of on the crux of being maybe a perennial playoff team, but then they seem to fall down. So they're very similar situations. But I credit Maxx Crosby for doing this. I understand last year I was skeptical and not exactly in support of how he approached the AP situation, but he did it and it worked. And so he got what he wanted and that's what happened. But remember, this is a guy who played all season with an injury that required surgery. So you can never question Maxx Crosby, even on the worst or one of the top 3 worst teams in the NFL this year, always gave it his all. And I mean, you see all the rest of the NFL teams around the league would say, holy crap, we'll pay you whatever you want to come here, especially some of these top teams who would bolster their defense in a second with a guy. So we'll see. But we wanted to get into that. I know we're going to talk more about this. And my hope is they get a deal done with Maxx Crosby. They got to do all their work for the draft, but I hope they get a deal done with him early, because I think that sets a tone for whoever comes in as coach, whatever Tom Brady's role is. I think it's going to send a clear message to Raider Nation, to the team who's left on the team, and to whoever the coach is and all that stuff, that we have a plan. Maxx Crosby is behind that plan, likes the plan. We've now paid him, and we're moving forward. So hopefully that all works out, and I think it will. So good stuff. All right, so don't get down. Don't think Maxx Crosby's out of the Raiders, even after that conversation. Okay, we're going to take our first break. It was a long first segment, but it needed to. It's a very important subject. When we come back, we're going to talk in segment 2 about the Raiders versus Saints coming up to this weekend on Sunday, again, of course. And this is another chance for the Raiders to win a game. Could they win 2 in a row? And also, any coaching rumors? Are we hearing anything out there? We'll get to that in a quick segment 2. In segment 3, we will get to your phone calls, as many as we can get in, here on Silver and Black Today, an Audacy Sports original podcast. Also on the radio, 101.5 KDON and 98.5 The Bet in Las Vegas. Our video brought to you by the people at BetUS. Don't go anywhere. Hey everybody, Scott Branson with Silver and Black Today. I want to tell you about our good friends at BetUS and the amazing offer they have for you as a viewer of Silver and Black Today. That's right. Wherever you're watching us, you can check out BetUS. If you haven't bet your football there before, you're missing out, because guess what? Not only do they have great odds, do they have a great mobile app and website, but they also give you a personal account manager. Yes, you could do that. And it's phenomenal. So make sure you do that. But BetUS, if you haven't gone to bet with them, they have everything you need when it comes to football, basketball, hockey, politics. I mean, dude, you name it, and BetUS is going to do it. But more than that, and even better for you, is the fact that because of their sponsorship here of Silver and Black Today, 150% sign-up bonus, $2,000. Not only that, but on your second and third deposit up to $2,000, they're going to give you 125% bonus. All you need to do is use the promo code YouTube1. That's YouTube150 to get the special offer here from Silver and Black Today. And again, if you haven't gone to BetUS, you got to do it. I love these guys. They are huge supporters here of the show, and we love it. And again, get that 150% sign-up bonus. What are you waiting for? It's getting down to playoff time. Raiders only got 2 games left if you like betting on your Raiders. But also, you got the playoffs, Super Bowl. You have the NBA going on. You have so much happening. So make sure you check out our friends at BetUS. And again, 150% sign-up bonus. Use the promo code YouTube150. Welcome back. Segment number 2, Silver and Black today, an Audacy Sports original podcast heard on the radio, 101.5 FM, KDON, and 98.5 The Bet in Las Vegas. Thank you to our Las Vegas audience on this Sunday morning. If you're listening to us, we appreciate you as always. And our video brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. Don't forget 150% sign-up bonus. Just use the promo code YouTube150. Also, subscribe to the show wherever you get your audio. Don't forget to rate and review. And also make sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell on the video side as well from our folks at BetUS. So thank you again for joining us. Momote and Skakal Branson back with you. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas as we record this on Thursday morning, same day release. So we could take our day off yesterday, of course. Mo, did you get your red velvet cake, all that stuff in?
I'm actually stuffed with red velvet cake. That's probably what I ate for half the day while watching football and basketball games. I had NBA. You're gonna cringe at this guy, but I had NBA on the big screen and I had football on a small tablet because, as I said, I didn't expect to see competitive football games. So I had the NBA on the big screen because my Knicks started off the day playing. They had a riveting game against the Spurs, and they won it, of course. So I had to have the Knicks on the big screen.
And listen, I was going to criticize you for watching the NBA because I think you're one of only 10 people who did, but it was the Knicks. That's your team. Like, I got no problem with that. That's totally fine. You didn't watch the rest of the games though, did you?
I did watch the rest of the games, but I switched TV screen size. So basically I had the NBA on the smaller screen and I had NFL on the bigger screen. Do like to watch Lamar Jackson like you do. And I picked the Ravens to win a division. A lot of Steelers fans came at me when I put out the piece on Bleacher Report that the Ravens would win a division. Mm-hmm. Pretty quiet from those people in Pittsburgh nowadays.
As we say, crickets. Yes, it was. And listen, I got bored of the football games because they were blowouts. I will say this with Netflix coverage. Obviously, the play-by-play stuff. These are guys from Cruz in the NFL. I was not a fan of the pregame. I actually like RG3. Sometimes he says some crazy stuff. But I liked him, but I did not like the panel on the pre-games and the halftimes. I'm a Kay Adams fan. I like her show. I like how she does her show. She's got her own style. But I was not a fan of that. But then again, it was the first time Netflix did it. And I think everybody was watching Netflix to see if they could keep up with demand, and they did. So we'll see. I know a lot of people are frustrated because if you don't have Netflix, it's like, oh my gosh, now the NFL's on 16 different networks and you got to have 14 different subscriptions. So we'll see. But anyway, it was at least there was some good football on. I'm surprised, or I should say, I think the NFL will try to schedule more games on Christmas moving forward. They only had the 2 games. NBA had 4 games, and we haven't seen the ratings yet, but I'm pretty sure even with blowouts, the NFL blew away the NBA. And I think that the NFL is trying to take over Christmas. So I wouldn't be surprised next year, Mo, if we see 3 games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be sort of like Thanksgiving. So Christmas is going to be on Thursday next year.
Yep.
And that means that we already get a Thursday night football game. I wouldn't be surprised if, like, on Thanksgiving, we have a Thursday holiday triple header. So a morning Christmas game, afternoon Christmas game, and then the usual Thursday night football game.
All right. Speaking of games and cities I love, New Orleans, the Saints and the Raiders. Mo, do the Raiders have a really good legitimate shot based on what you saw last week, which was a terrible football game?
Yes.
It was like watching 2 people with their hands tied behind their back and their feet tied together play each other in a game. Do you feel like the Raiders have a good shot at this game and put together 2 wins? I know a lot of fans will hate that because they want the draft pick situation resolved, but what do you think?
Scott, I compared the Raiders and the Jaguars game last week to 2 drunk people having a fight at a grocery store. Did you watch the Saints on Monday?
Oh, terrible.
Donut. They were didn't even score a point.
Green Bay killed them.
And you're rolling in, even though they're coming back home to New Orleans, so they should have a slightly better performance. They won't be out in the cold at Lambeau. This is a dome team, right? So they're gonna be better than what you saw on Monday, but it's still Spencer Rattler. And who's his top wide receiver? No Chris Olave. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who actually has played well with Derek Carr, was hurt last game, had an injury and an illness. His top wide receiver is Cedric Wilson, Kevin Porter Jr. The Saints offense is completely decimated with injuries. You want to talk about injuries? The Saints have no one on offense. Kendre Miller, Juwan Johnson, and Foster Moreau, former Raider, are Spencer Rattler's top pass catchers. Now, it's trending in the direction that Derek Carr is not going to play after suffering a concussion and an injury to his left hand. It's trending that Alvin Kamara is still uncertain with a groin injury. If neither of those two play, the Saints aren't winning that football game, and the Raiders are going to win back-to-back, and they're going to wind up picking 9th or 10th in the order, depending on what happens around the league. Let's keep in mind that the Jaguars and the Titans play. They're both 3-12. One of those teams have to win. If you're a Raider fan, you're rooting for the Titans to win because the Titans need a quarterback, and you want to be ahead of the Titans in the draft order. So just keep that in mind. But I think the Raiders are going to absolutely win back-to-back games. You heard Antonio Pierce said this week, right? Doesn't give a poop about your draft capital, your draft picks, your draft projections, your mock drafts. Doesn't care anything about that. And it's obvious, duh. We should know that as common sense. Of course they don't care.
Why was the question asked?
I think it was.
I'm not trying to just criticize somebody in the media. I'm just saying, why is the question even asked? Because the guy's trying to save his job. He doesn't give a crap.
Right. I think it was asked simply because a lot of fans were talking about the draft order and saying the Raiders should bench starters and put in some backups so that it's not tanking, but it's kind of developing your young talent. It's a soft tank sort of strategy. And I think Antonio Pierce basically told everyone what we already knew. He's still coaching to keep his job. I'm not saying going 5-12 is going to save him if the Raiders win out and win 3 straight. And you're looking at it like, oh, maybe AP's got something. I don't think it's going to save his job. But if you're AP, you got to at least try to win. You're going to at least give your best, right? As I said, you don't want to go out losing 13 straight games after going 2-2 if you're Antonio Pierce. You still have a coaching career that you're in right now. You're still trying to do the best for yourself. A lot of these players won't be on the roster next year. They're trying to do the best for their short-term futures as well. So obviously they're trying to win. And to answer your question, Scott, I think they beat the Saints, who right now have no one on offense.
Yeah, and listen, again, I believe that Antonio Pierce was not ready, and that has shown. I don't believe that's for a lack of effort or a desire to win or a desire to do a good job. I think he's a competitive guy, so I don't have any fault with him on that at all. Because Antonio Pierce, whatever you think of him, he's a competitor. I mean, we know that he's a professional football player and won a Super Bowl, all that stuff. So I agree, and I think you're right. I think they beat the Saints on Sunday, and yes, some Raider fans are going to get really depressed because they're draft pick. But remember, it just becomes a little more costly for you to move up. Yes, you got to have somebody who wants to move, wants to trade down, all that stuff. But to your point, Mo, about taking big swings, man, I'm not saying you trade 3 years of first-round draft picks for Shedeur Sanders. I'm not saying that. But that's not – fans have, I think, an unrealistic expectation sometimes of what deals are to move up in the draft. It's not like last year. So, yes, a Shedeur Sanders. Yes, a Travis Hunter. Yes, a Cam Ward. They're all going to require a lot of compensation. But how that comes together, we don't know. So don't jump to conclusions. So if the Raiders are picking 9th, it's just they're going to have to do more work, and it's going to be on Tom Telesco to move up and get that quarterback and to take that big swing, even though some of you have told me in no uncertain words that you think Shedeur Sanders isn't a good quarterback, which I don't understand because I don't know how you watch the games and think that. But nonetheless, you're entitled to your opinion. So we'll see how it all works out. But the other thing is, real quick, before we go to the break, Mo, and get to at least a call or two for radio and then longer calls for the podcast feed, is coaching rumors. So we saw Pete Carroll float the rumors. I talked about it earlier. And of course, some fans jump on any rumor and say, what about the Raiders? And obviously Pete Carroll, I don't think would be anywhere near a good fit for the Raiders. I like Pete Carroll as a pro coach. I think he does a good job, but he's a defensive-minded coach again. And that's not the direction the Raiders need to go. Just like a lot of people jumping on the let's go get Sam Darnold bandwagon. And even some media members are saying, well, if the Raiders, depending what they do, and they can't get a quarterback in the draft, maybe that's an option for them. I think, again, with all due respect, I just think that idea of trying to get somebody that's established, or from a quarterback perspective, where he hasn't had 2 years in a row, and I think the Vikings will tag him anyway. But nonetheless, I think that the situation here is your Raiders, you have to unfortunately rebuild, yes, and start over, coach, quarterback, but that does not mean that you can't quickly become competitive, or that you can't do it with somebody who's not necessarily a retread.
Right. A really quick correction on my part. I meant Kevin Austin Jr. of the New Orleans Saints. So think about Kevin Porter Jr.
Austin, yeah.
Rockets player. Kevin Austin Jr. Apologies to the Kevin Austin Jr. family. But to your point about look, they're going to be a ton of head coaching rumors out there, depending on if Antonio Pierce is fired. That's the first step, and we think he will be. You're going to hear. I think Mike Vrabel will be, because of his ties with Tom Brady. He's going to be one of the top names talked about connected to the Raiders, and you're going to hear about top offensive coordinators, considering the Raiders need to develop a quarterback, whether they're picking first, second, third, fifth, eighth, ninth, 10th. I think they're going to get a quarterback in there, even if they go with the veteran route, right? They're going to need that veteran to play his best football, as we've seen Sam Darnold do under Kevin O'Connell, as we've seen Baker Mayfield do under my guy Liam Cohen, who I think should be the Raiders head coach, by the way. But we're going to probably do a whole entire show on head coaching candidates if Antonio Pierce is fired. I'll probably do an entire show on head coaching candidates if Antonio Pierce is fired over at Bleacher Report. It could, and I want to say, don't be afraid of the retread option if it's a quality option. So last offseason, I remember talking about Dan Quinn. And I said, the reason I like Dan Quinn, people were like, oh, no, he's a retread. He didn't win anything in Atlanta. He went to a Super Bowl. He was in the infamous 28-3 game.
Mm-hmm.
I would have taken Dan Quinn in a heartbeat, because, as I talked about in the first segment, Scott, he knows how to build a coaching staff. And I think, again, I want to reemphasize this point that when you're looking at head coaches, look at the staffs, specifically retreads, because you don't have a track record for the new candidates that are trying to become first-time head coaches. For the retreads out there, look at the staffs that they build at previous stops. When you look at a head coach's previous staffs, is that a staff that you would like for the Raiders? Mm-hmm. That type of staff. Because let me tell you, for the young coaches on those previous staffs, a lot of those guys are going to be back with that head coach again, right? Unless they have a job already, they're going to be back with him again. Now, we know with Mike Vrabel, he had the Steelers' current offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, who I think is a quality offensive coordinator. It is not going so well in Pittsburgh right now. I understand that. But Arthur Smith knows how to, one, develop a run game, and two, he got Ryan Tannehill to comeback player of the year one year. So I'm just saying he's going to be employed in Pittsburgh anyway. But when you look at a Mike Vrabel, take a look at his previous staffs. I would say his previous stats, I wouldn't give it a slam dunk grade A. They were kind of mediocre. Shane Bowen, he had Todd Downing for a little bit. I didn't love his staffs, but I think Mike Vrabel is a quality head coach and is going to be the top retread candidate coming up in this hiring cycle.
And I believe the Raiders need to, for their roster, for the fan base and everything, I think they need, you talk about big swing on quarterback, I think they need to take a big swing on head coach too. So while Ben Johnson's going to be the hottest name again, might be difficult for them to get him. But man, Tom Brady will be involved. I would go after the big names and do everything you can to do it. Remember, their salaries don't count towards salary cap. And I know even some national media, Mark Davis already paying 3 head coaches. He's going to pay 3 head coaches. It doesn't matter. Okay. Look at the valuation of the franchise. It sucks. You're spending money on coaches that aren't there anymore, but you got to get this one right. And so I think they need to take a big swing. All right, we're going to take this final break. When we come back, we're going to get to a call maybe or two on the radio and longer caller segment, the Raider Nation Mailbag, for the podcast feed. So if you're listening to us on radio, you'll get a quick one. But if you want to hear the rest of them, just go subscribe to our Audacy Sports original podcast, wherever you get your audio, and you can hear the rest of them. It's Mo, it's Scott. This is Silver and Black Today, coming back right after this and on video, brought to you by our good friends at BetUS.
Enough of hearing us talk about the Raiders. It's time to hear from you.
Any Oakland Raider fan, Las Vegas Raider fan, stand up.
On this edition of the Raider Nation Mailbag.
That black hole rocking and rolling.
Don't be a wallflower. Be a part of the show. Leave your question or message by calling 702-900-7869. That's 702-900-7869. Or drop us an email at mail@silverandblacktoday.com.
All right, Raider Nation, let's see what kind of mood you're in. Are you in the holiday spirit? despite the state of the Raiders? Let's see. We'll check it out. Again, our video brought to you by our good friends at BetUS. 150% sign-up bonus. Use the promo code YouTube150. Scott Branson, Mo Moten back with you. Let's, for our radio audience, get to a quick call, and then we will get to the rest of them on the podcast feed. All right, here's our good friend Anders in Oakland on the Raider Nation Mailbag.
Oh, Merry Christmas, fellas. This is Anders from Oakland. It is Christmas Day Eve. I am out walking with my dogs. And if you guys were real, like, jackasses, you would have a show with the worst calls or the worst takes of the year. And I'm pretty sure that I would be at the very top of that list. I distinctly remember calling you guys, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 months ago, talking about how, you guys are all harping on the quarterback and, yeah, whatever. It doesn't really matter all that much. We got all these other things and play calling and yada, 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 yada. Holy crap, was I wrong. So, hey, kudos to you guys for having that all dialed in and me not knowing what the hell I'm talking about unless it's something about, like, business strategy or something. But anyway, I think you guys have proven right. The quarterback situation was an absolute debacle. Clearly, so was the head coach, offensive coordinator, and other choices that were made. But I think my take on the quarterback being not all that important was probably the worst take of the year, in my opinion. Anyway, looking forward to the Raiders being competitive in 2029. Until then, I'll be listening to you guys and enjoying the show. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Bye now.
Anders, my man in Oakland, one of our great callers, and also doing what everybody should do at the end of the year, a little self-reflection. And Mo, we are not always right. We get plenty wrong, just like everybody else. We have opinions, and they're opinions. Some are based on observations and the work we do, right? But Anders' point about, again, I think this is what goes back to, we talked about it with fans that we thought that maybe you don't ever want to tell fans not to be optimistic, right? Because you're a fan. You want to feel good about your team going in. We just, I think, dropped some breadcrumbs to say, hey, cool, you're optimistic. You're optimistic about AP. You're optimistic about what's going on with the team. But here's a couple things to think about that we just don't know yet. And I think that's what he was referencing there.
I think it's pretty cool that Anders can get on and just say, hey, here's why I was just completely wrong. Because you don't get a lot of that when you talk to some people on certain social media platforms. You would think that these people on social media platforms should be football Einsteins, the way they think they're always right. They have never admit that they're wrong. So I'll actually go along with Anders' theme here. He brought up his worst take. My worst take for the Raiders this year was probably that Devontae Adams wasn't going to the Jets, because that's exactly what happened.
Me too.
Within the first 5 weeks of the season, 6 weeks of the season, I got on Jets podcast and told him no chance. I got on here and said, man, Devontae Adams is happy with the Raiders. He ain't going nowhere. This is all baloney. Why are we even talking about this? And then he has a fake hamstring. I don't want to call it fake, but a hamstring injury that he milked a little bit, because magically he got to New York and he was healthy, and it was documented that he wanted to go to the Jets, and he eventually ends up there. Now, it didn't work out for him well, but I was on the boat that there's no way he moves on. He's said all the right things, and what I learned from that situation is no matter what a player says, and I know a lot of people are going to say Maxx Crosby, no matter what a player says publicly, there are always private conversations that go on, whether they want to acknowledge them or not. And we're not necessarily getting their true feelings when they speak into a microphone. So I will never get on this. I don't say never, but I'm not going to get on my microphone and say, this is never going to happen, because now I've sat through Khalil Mack getting traded in a different circumstance, and then Devontae Adams requesting the trade. So you won't hear me say never in a million years Maxx Crosby gets traded. Anything is possible. Anybody could be moved depending what happens behind the scenes.
All right, Anders, also just a Merry Christmas to you, Happy New Year, and thank you for such a great call and sharing with us kind of where you thought you went wrong with your thoughts on this season before it began. Again,
happy
before
New
it began,
Year.
right? I mean, that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
All right. We are now going to get to our next caller. Here is a new caller, I believe, Ryan from Clovis, California, of course, Central Valley. And here we go. Here's Ryan.
Hey, guys. This is Ryan in Clovis. First time, long time. Thanks for all you do. Obviously, like the rest of Raider Nation, I'm a little perplexed. Maybe that's putting it gently from the win yesterday. But I'll try to make this quick. The QB thing is going to be a big question, of course. It was before, but now it's a little bit more murky, let's say. I think we have a few options. One, of course, we got to wait to see how the rest of the season goes, right? They might end up near the top again. But one, I would say, is a trade-up. I'm not a huge fan of this. I don't know that either of the quarterbacks are worthy of trading up. It would solve the question long term, but it depends on what it would cost. I definitely don't want to do like a first next year. So if they can keep it contained to the draft this year, then yeah, worth exploring. Two would be roll with AOC, right? He shows like he's decent. Yesterday, he kind of looked like Aiden O'Connell mixed with Randall Cunningham, maybe back in the day. But and continue to build the rest of the roster because there's some good talent in the top 6 or so, assuming those 2 quarterbacks get taken. Along with that one, maybe take a swing at like a Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd. Maybe he's like Russell Wilson, kind of an undersized guy, led a good team for a while and then didn't really get a shot until later and ends up being, some of his traits translate. So maybe that's an option. Third option, and this one might just get dismissed out of hand, but I look at the Vikings right now. I'm reading something this morning that, they're not likely to let Sam Darnold go. What if the Raiders say, hey, we've got a top 5 pick. Would you trade that top 5 pick for J.J. McCarthy? And, yeah, of course not, right? No, we have our quarterback long term, but Darnold's only 28. They re-signed him to this team, this really, really good Vikings team. It's got to be something they think about. You say, hey, you can add a Mason Graham or Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter to your team as is right now, in addition to your first-round pick, and you're losing a player that didn't play a snap this year. So I wonder if they would even pick up the phone and maybe listen to that. So just some thoughts. I know it's still got a couple games left to determine where everything settles, but that's just the way my mind is working. Like, how can we continue to work towards solving this quarterback problem? Anyway, appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
All right, there you go. Ryan and Clovis, man, appreciate you listening for a long time and calling in for the first time. Don't be a stranger. Keep calling in. Mo, I think 2 things with J.J. McCarthy. One, not the hugest fan, number 1. Number 2, 2 knee surgeries. And number 3, I go back to, and I'm sorry to take the victory lap because he hasn't done anything yet, so maybe it's not a victory lap. But I was one of the only people who said, I understand the Falcons doing what they did. And now they're going to get rid of Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix Jr., who they drafted this year in the first round, is going to be their quarterback next year, or at least be in competition with another veteran they sign to be the starter there. So I think it shows you what we talk about here all the time, Ryan, is that in the NFL, you can't have too many quarterbacks. Okay. And so unless you're solidified and have a guy, you're Baltimore, you're Kansas City, that type of situation, you're Buffalo, you got to keep going. You got to keep trying. So to me, I know a lot of people don't like Sanders, don't like Cam Ward. The class isn't as hyped as last year's players were, even though I think these 2 guys last year would have been maybe the 4th and 5th quarterback in the draft last year. But Mo, the Vikings, I don't think would trade him. I don't think you trade for a guy coming off 2 knee surgeries, even if he's young. And again, I think you just got to, if you love Sanders or Ward, if you're Tom Telesco and you're the Raiders and you love him, then there's no price that is an overpayment within reason. There's no price that's an overpayment because you believe in him. If you don't believe in him, then the Raiders do something else.
Yeah, I'm not attached to the Vikings organization, but I think this seems like the most likely plan for the Vikings at quarterback. I think they're going to franchise tag Sam Darnold. Say, hey, you had a great year. We understand that. We're going to the playoffs with you. Career numbers and all of that. We want to see you do it again. Yeah. Because like me, I think a lot of GMs want to see what's that C word, Scott, consistency. You can do it 1 year. Can you do it again? And I don't think they're going to give Sam Darnold a multi-year contract unless they see a pattern. And you can't establish a pattern unless you do it for at least consecutive years. So I think they franchise tag Darnold. And then they allow J.J. McCarthy to fully heal, don't rush him back. As you said, he's had multiple knee surgeries. So they could tag Sam Darnold for a year and just kind of defer that quarterback decision another year. Okay, if Sam Darnold has another good year, then what do we do? If Sam Darnold falls off a cliff, then we just move on to J.J. McCarthy, right? Now, as far as Dylan Gabriel is concerned, because a lot of Raider fans are bringing up Dylan Gabriel as an alternative option. Yes, he is undersized, as Ryan said, but he's played well at Central Florida, Oklahoma, and now Oregon, putting up big numbers in all three spots. And oh, by the way, Tom Telesco has some history with Oregon quarterbacks, let's just say, right? So there's that. But I think that you're going to start to have to, and I said this on the last show, get familiar with some of these quarterbacks who are not going to be drafted in the first round. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about these names: Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel because of his size, Jackson Dart. Can his game translate to the pro level? Carson Beck, who's going to undergo elbow surgery. I know a lot of people are going to turn up your face and cringe at those names, but when it comes to the draft, you're looking at not what the prospect is right now, but what that prospect could be 2-3 years down the line. Are his mistakes, are his negatives correctable? Because you could take a prospect and say he's flawed in these areas, but if we can correct him and we can get the best out of him, we can get a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying any of these guys are comparable to Josh Allen, but I remember when Josh Allen was coming out, a lot of people knocked on his accuracy. Oh, he's at Wyoming, no big games. His accuracy is very shoddy. He's going to be a train wreck in the NFL. And look at Josh Allen now. So all I'm saying is that while the Raiders at this point looks like they're going to miss out on Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders if they don't trade up, that doesn't mean there isn't a franchise quarterback beyond them in this upcoming draft class.
No, it's just, and again, you can also take a quarterback in the first round, as people like to remind me all the time when I harp on the quarterback situation. You can take a quarterback in the first round that never makes it either. But that's not the point. First round talent versus fourth round talent, it's just different. Now, sometimes that turns on its head, but that is there's a lot lesser chance of that happening than getting a guy in the first or second round, for example, like the Raiders did with Derek Carr, and getting a competent quarterback. Then also, I would say that the possibility that the Raiders don't get a quarterback, for lack of a better term, surefire quarterback, i.e. the first two in the draft, and Aiden O'Connell being the guy they run with next year, to me, that's plan C or D, Mo. And if you get to plan C or D at quarterback, to me, it lengthens the time in which you're rebuilding. You talked about how you could turn this around pretty quickly. I say if you don't get a quarterback that has the ability to be transformative, then that extends it, because now you're punting another year, excuse the expression, on the quarterback position, hoping that you can do it next year. But if you're better next year, again, where are you going to be? You're going to be middle of the first round, in the teens in the first round. Can you trade up that? Again, it all starts all over again. And just be prepared, Raider Nation, if they don't address the quarterback position with a big swing, you're gonna get angry, because all the national media is gonna just say, "There's the Raiders again. They can't figure out the quarterback position." So that's kind of where we're headed. But again, I think Tom Telesco, got to give him the opportunity. The talk of him not trading up in the past, he didn't have to go get a quarterback. You said that on a show 2 weeks ago here, Mo. The fact that he didn't need to. He got Phillip Rivers, then he came in, and then when he did have an opportunity, he went and got Justin Herbert out of Oregon. So don't go too much on history. You can learn things from history, but not everything, and situations are different. So we'll see where that ends up. But Ryan, again, thank you for the call. All right, now we're going out to Raider Fan 23. Somebody's listened to the show for a long time, hasn't called in a while, but here he is.
Hey, what's up, Scott and Mo? Hey, first off, Merry Christmas to you both. It's Raider Fan 23.
Exactly what it says.
Regarding the quote-unquote tank job that the Raiders are supposed to do and that nonsense, I would never root for my team to lose. I don't care. The draft is a crapshoot. It doesn't matter whether you're drafting in the first round or the seventh round. Everything that has to do with the draft is a crapshoot. So I'm never going to root for my team to lose for the sake of a draft pick. You know, this situation feels like that picture on the internet where it says, when it doesn't feel right, go left. And I feel like a lot of Raider Nation is going to the right with, well, they need to lose out and so they can get to number 1 and draft Shador or Ward. I'll say this. Unless somebody tells me or guarantees me, okay, we get Shador, we're going to win about 3-4 Super Bowls. We're going to compete with the Chiefs, go back and forth to beat them or, have it be a consistent rivalry, not just one-sided. Or we're going to be one of the top-tier teams up there with the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, and teams like that. The problem is that ain't guaranteed.
Yep.
So why root for your team to lose for something that you don't even know is going to happen or not?
Yep.
And this whole thing kind of takes me back because my thought process kind of changed. This kind of takes me back to when Telesco said, or he had concerns about the roster kind of being a little bit overrated. That kind of hit home with me because I feel like, while yes, I still feel like we need a quarterback, I still feel like this roster has holes that are not complete yet. So if we go in the draft and we don't get a quarterback in the first round, I may not be too upset about that. I still think we need one, yes, but we can still always attack the trenches. You can never have too many D-line or O-line. You can never have too many of those. So if we go best player available, or we just try, I want this team to have a complete roster before we go and get a quarterback that has to come in and they feel like, oh, well, he has to kind of put the team on his shoulders every week to go win a game. I want to see a team that's built to play complementary football. That's it, man. Happy holidays, fellas. Raider Mike.
That
Raider
is
Fan 23 out.
Raider Fan 23 banger call right there. Banger call. Good one. I appreciate it. And I agree with him on most things. I still think, though, Raider Fan 23, that you're right about filling the holes. I think, and I was talking about my buddies, we were watching the game the other night. You got to have the trenches figured out. You got to have offense, defensive line. Okay? It all starts there. No question. Okay? But that doesn't mean you can't do both. Okay? And never underestimate what a quarterback can do. And you're right about the gamble. Right, Mo? You don't know. Again, Caleb Williams might be the greatest quarterback that ever lived, or he might be a complete bust. We don't know. Okay? Jaden Daniels, I use this example. The Washington Commanders are not a complete football team, Mo. But look what Jaden Daniels has done. I know he fell off a little bit in the second half. Doesn't matter. They're still going to be a wild card playoff team, or at least have the shot at the wild card. They won 3 games last year, right? Or with 5. I can't remember which one. But I think it was 3. They were horrible. They were in the same position the Raiders were last year. They signed some free agents. They got the quarterback and the coach. And look what happened. So I think, again, to your point, Raider Fan 23, if they don't get the quarterback, not the end of the world. I just think it extends the time to get you competitive, even if you do take best player available and address some of those needs, Mo.
My guy, Raider Fan 23, Raider Mike, he is at almost all of my Bleacher Report lies. So I just want to say, have a Merry Christmas, Raider Fan 23. You've made a lot of my Bleacher Report lies very live, and just a lot of great comments. He has a lot of funny quips when we go in there. He hates moral victories. I know that about him. He's like, look, a loss is a loss, a win is a win. And it coincides exactly with his call today. So I just want to say shout out to Raider Fan 23 for all he's contributed to my Bleacher Report shows and his call today. Now, about the actual call, I agree with him on a lot here, right? So, number one, I understand both sides of fans wanting the high draft pick, but as Raider Fan 23, it said there are no guarantees in the draft. It's all a crapshoot, right? A lot of people thought Caleb Williams would be pretty good this year. Now he's played well, hasn't turned the ball over, but hasn't quite uplifted that football team because that football team has some issues specifically with their coaching staff. I believe it's more of a coaching thing than a roster thing. But he said the Raiders roster, he doesn't want a rookie coming in. And we talked about this on my Bleacher Report Lives that even if you bring in a rookie quarterback, you don't want him to have to put on a cape as a rookie and save your football team. Well, it seems like C.J. Stroud did that in his first year. C.J. Stroud's fallen off this year. But Jaden Daniels has seemingly done that this year, put on a cape and kind of save the Washington Commanders, who, as you pointed out, don't have a complete football team. They don't have a great offensive line. They have one good wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. And on defense, they've had some issues on defense, and that's why they acquired Marshawn Lattimore before the trade deadline. So they've had issues on both sides of the ball. But guess what? They're probably going to the playoffs because they got the quarterback position right. Now, Raider Fan 23, I'm not saying that the quarterback position, the rookie, whoever it could have been, has to save the football team. That's an ideal situation where you have a complete football team and then you bring in the quarterback and then you're a solid team all around. That's the perfect ideal situation. But Raider Fan 23, it doesn't always work out like that. Sometimes you just got to look, let's get our quarterback position right. He's going to struggle. We understand that in his first few years. Look at Drake May with the New England Patriots. They are far from a complete roster. They're not going to even win 5 games this year, right? He's going to struggle. He has struggled, but he has shown some glimpses. He has shown some shining spots that he could be the guy, the franchise quarterback. I don't think the Patriots regret drafting Drake May and passing on Marvin Harrison Jr. So still, I feel like even if you don't have the complete roster, you bring your quarterback along accordingly. So the Patriots didn't start Drake May right away because they knew their roster was terrible.
Yep.
He didn't start until about week 5 or week 6. They brought him along slowly. So I do think you still prioritize the quarterback situation. I think you have to adjust your plan for him according to what your roster looks like. So a really quick, Scott, as Raider Fan 23 did say, and I agree with him on this one, there are holes in this roster. The Raiders are going to have to draft, in my opinion, another cornerback. Jack Jones isn't what he was last year. He's given up a ton of touchdowns this year. They need a safety. Marcus Epps, season-ending injury. He's going to be a free agent. Trayvon Merrick, going to be a free agent. Who knows if the Raiders sign him back? Robert Spillane is aging, even though he has played well. Devon Diablo going to be a free agent. They need a linebacker. They need a wide receiver after the Devontae Adams situation. They need a running back to prepare with maybe Sincere McCormick. They need another guard opposite Dylan Parham now that Jackson Powers-Johnson looks like he's going to play center. So, yes, there are some parts that the Raiders need to fill, but I still think you prioritize the quarterback and, again, bring him along according to what your roster looks like.
Amen. All right, now we move on to our good buddy, Jacob, the legendary Jacob in Fresno.
Yeah. Jolly go, Brent. And many town, no motion. This is Jacob from Fresno. What's up, guys? So, listening to the show on Tuesday night. I don't know when you guys record these, right? So sometimes I'm calling a little late. I'm starting to recognize now. Monday afternoon, I left you guys a call. I thought it was a banger, but I think I was just a little too late getting it to you guys. Maybe it makes it on the Thursday show. And then what's up with this? Maybe this won't be on the Thursday. I don't know. I do not know. But listen, guys. I got triggered because I heard Mo say something, attributed it to me, something I did not say. I want to make this very clear, okay? I did not ever once say that Aiden O'Connell has a single chance of ever being the starting quarterback in the NFL. I didn't say it. I'm just saying I love him. I'm just saying he shows moxie, he shows good. I want him to be our backup quarterback for the rest of his career if somehow we can make that financially doable. I would love to see that because I appreciate him. I appreciate the work that he's done. He was a 6-4, 8A state, Illinois State division guy. He hardly made it to the playoffs. They lost 21-20 in the playoffs, and he got no offers, and he went out and he did some great things, to finally eventually earn the starting job in Purdue in his junior year, or maybe it was in the middle of his junior year, and he was still down. They weren't sure if they were going to keep him, and his career has just been underdog, back and forth, and I love it. I love that story. Not going to be a starter in the NFL, right? That's just not going to happen. But Mo, you said I thought he should start. Now let me explain something. I said that he should start over Shedeur Sanders if we get him, which I'm hoping we get him. Somehow let's make it happen. He should start over Shedeur Sanders' his rookie year, and let me explain why. Because I remember what we did with DC. We didn't build around him. We didn't get him enough. We didn't protect him, and he got hurt. I don't want to see that happen to Shedeur Sanders. I want to see this guy go to the Hall of Fame. I want to see a great Raider career where we win a bunch of Super Bowls. And I don't think that's going to happen if we put him behind this offensive line and we don't protect him. And that's all I'm saying, guys. Aiden O'Connell clearly never going to be better than Shedeur Sanders. But we need to protect him first before we put him out there in front of the dogs. All right, guys, I appreciate you. Merry Christmas. God bless you. And go Raiders.
All right, Jacob, God bless you, and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you and yours too. All right, Mo, you could set the record straight with Jacob here.
So what I heard, Jacob, was, and you reiterated right there, that you would start Aiden O'Connell before you throw Shedeur Sanders out there. And I think that's what I railed on, that if you draft Shedeur Sanders, you're going to start him week 1. If you're drafting Shedeur Sanders at the number 1 overall pick, you're going to start him week 1. I think that was my point. Not that Aiden O'Connell is the guy, but that even if you have Aiden O'Connell on the roster and you draft Shedeur Sanders with one of those top picks, you are not starting Aiden O'Connell week 1. I understand you don't want Shedeur Sanders, and it kind of ties into what Raider Fan 23 says. You don't want to throw him out there with a roster that's incomplete, or a roster that's one of the worst rosters in the league. And I don't think the Raiders have one of the worst rosters in the league. It's not complete, but I don't think it's one of the worst rosters. But I think if you're drafting Shedeur Sanders, I think a lot of us, including myself, would be disappointed if Shedeur Sanders doesn't beat out Aiden O'Connell for the starting job by week 1. I think you're expecting Shedeur Sanders to win the job, and then you're putting him out there assuming that, okay, while the Raiders roster isn't complete, and I get your point, Jacob, that you don't want him to get hurt or banged up behind, an incomplete team, but you're looking at Aiden O'Connell, who's been banged up, and he's not very mobile, right? Shedeur Sanders more mobile than Aiden O'Connell, right? So you would expect he could protect himself. And the Raiders' offensive line, while it may not be complete, there's a need at guard. We feel good about DJ Glaze, but we're still unsure. It's not a terrible offensive line.
That's what I was going to bring up there, that Jacob brought up, and I've seen this from a lot of folks, and I get the reasoning. So I think a lot of people are underestimating the offensive line for the Raiders, because I'm not saying that it's one of the best in the league, okay, but I'm also saying it's not terrible. I think a lot of people get to that conclusion, Mo, because you don't have a quarterback who's dynamic to move back there. And also the running game has been so poor this year that everybody attributes that only to the offensive line. And yes, they need a running back, but I think there's some misconceptions there.
There are. And like I said, it's Jaden Daniels, while he's one of the more electric quarterbacks dynamically with his legs, the Washington Commanders offensive line isn't great. Let me tell you, it's not. So you don't have to sit a quarterback for fear of him getting hurt, because if that's the fear, then you might as well wrap him in bubble wrap until you get until you know who your 5 starters are. He's going to have to get out there and take his lumps. I prefer a quarterback to get out there and go through the struggle early, have his rookie lumps and his rookie ups and downs early, so that by the end of the season, he's a lot better. By the time he comes back by his second year, he's already got the taste of NFL action. He's already played in regular season games that mean something. And it's not just like, you're okay, year 2, now we're going to start fresh with him. No, he's already got some experience under his belt. It's going to be good for him. Sometimes it's good to go through the tough ways before you get to a point where it's like, okay, and now everything is set. Now everything is perfect. I'm going to go back to my point about Raider Fan 23. If you're expecting to drop a quarterback into a perfect situation, you're going to be waiting for a long time. Things are not going to be perfect in the NFL for rookie quarterbacks, no matter where they go.
In very rare cases, do teams already with an amazing offensive line established not have a quarterback and then go draft the quarterback, or you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It doesn't happen like that. You're drafting a quarterback because you don't have one, and your team is not very good. I mean, that's usually the way it works. There's been a few exceptions. The Chiefs, of course, when they got Mahomes, all that stuff, there's a few of them. But again, too, there's also never a perfect situation. If you're waiting for the perfect situation, it will never arise, because you could get your offensive line in a great position and then you lose 2 guys to injury. So then do you not take a quarterback because of that? Do you not start the young guy because you lost 2 offense? I mean, it goes on, and it's really a microcosm of life, right? Which is there's never anything goes according to plan, and B, nothing is ever perfect. You're never going to be in a perfect situation. So you just take your swings and you hope for the best based on the knowledge you have.
So Jacob, if you're listening to this, just so we can square this away, this misconception, disagreement, miscommunication, I just want to make sure I get this straight. So you're saying, even if the Raiders draft a quarterback at the top of the draft, you would start Aiden O'Connell, and that's where we disagree. Where we agree is Aiden O'Connell is a career backup quarterback. Am I clear on that, Jacob? If you're listening out there, wherever you are, Merry Christmas, by the way, Jacob. Thanks for contributing to the show. I just want to make sure that we are clear on where we agree and where we disagree. But again, call back and let me know if I'm on track there with what you said.
And Jacob, on the calls, two things is we usually record Monday morning and Wednesday morning, right? Because of Mo's schedule, my schedule, that's usually when we record it. Like today, we're recording on Thursday, the day after Christmas. So it's the same day release. That's why the podcast is out later, even though we're recording it the same day. So if you want to get your call in, and again, I try to always weigh, because sometimes we get 20 calls. And so we can't do all 20 of them. So I try to cycle things in, and sometimes I might just miss yours. If you had a banger, I apologize. But the best bet is to do it Sunday after the game. And even Sunday after the game now, if you get a really good one, I might even put it on the post-game show with Murph. So, but if not, Sunday, Monday, and then you can either call Monday or Tuesday, and that'll get in for Thursday's show, because then we record on Wednesday, and I pull the calls there too. So anyway, but Jacob, thank you, man. We appreciate you as always. Your contribution is always welcome. All right, now we're going out to the Show Me State, Missouri, our good buddy Dominique, who always has great things to say.
Hey, Scott and Mo, this is Dominique from the Show Me State. How you guys doing? Well, what do you know? The Raiders continue to Raider, and they win a meaningless game. So now, of course, we go from having the number 1 pick to the number 6 pick. And my thing is, I don't understand why people are so happy with this win, especially our owner, Mark Davis. The reports are he's in the locker room, high-fiving, dancing, cheering, going around to everyone like they just won a Super Bowl. That's really what I have a problem with. Everyone that's so happy that we won this meaningless game, and like I've been saying, winning games at this point in the season, it does no good. It does more harm than good. I just don't understand why they're so happy with winning this game, and why we have some fans that are just so happy with this win. It's too late to win games now. Like I said, it does nothing but hurt. And they possibly can win against the Saints as well, which will push us even further down. But I just don't get it, guys. Let me know what you think. I'll be listening as always. Appreciate you guys. See you.
All right, Dominique, thanks, man. Mo, what do you think?
One, I think if you're Antonio Pierce, you're happy for the win because, one, if you're going to get fired, you'd rather go out a winner. Two, if you really think these wins can help you keep your job, you're obviously excited. I will say, Dominique, the majority of the fans that I came in contact with on my Bleacher Report Live were like you. They were not happy with this win. I had one Raider fan on my Bleacher Report Live who said he was a fan of the Raiders for 52 years, and he said this is the worst win in franchise history. And I quote word for word, this is the worst win in franchise history. So I think the minority of fans were happy with it. There weren't too many. I couldn't find too many fans that were ecstatic. I did hear fans that had Raider Fan 23's perspective that they'll never cheer for their team to lose. And I think that was more of the sentiment than I'm happy for the win. As far as Mark Davis is concerned, I don't, look, his father just win, baby. Maybe he's taking on that type of mentality of regardless of the circumstance, we're just trying to win football games. Mark Davis did say he wanted to see progress down the line. Now, again, I don't think beating the Jaguars 19-14 is progress because, again, the game was sloppy. It wasn't like the Raiders dominated the Jaguars. But to me, it's a clear indication that the way we think on the outside is a very different way than players, coaches, and owners think about certain games. While we may call it a meaningless win, they clearly don't think it was a meaningless victory.
But see here, Mo, and I think you bring up a good point there. I think and I don't know, there were reports. I didn't see any video other than the post-game speech, which the Raiders obviously published, where they're chanting Raiders. And again, some people had issues with that. Look, these guys have had a rough season. You lost 10 in a row. Yeah. I don't mind them having some relief and celebrating a win. I didn't see any cigar smoking. I know people were,
I was going to say, I hope they didn't smoke cigars.
I didn't see any of that. Okay. The Mark Davis thing, though, I'll hit on really quick, which is, I think this is Mark Davis's weakness, right? You have to have, and I think Tom Brady hopefully will bring this more so, which is you have to have a high standard. You ended a 10-game win streak, a lose streak, excuse me. You won a game at home. Okay, fine. You have your quick little speech in the locker room, you celebrate, and then you get back to work. Does it require the owner to go in and the owner's too close to the players? That's why you have Antonio Pierce as the head coach. This has been Mark Davis's weakness, self-admitted weakness, by the way. I'm not just criticizing him. He's admitted it. And I think this is why you need somebody who is going to be the football guy who sets the expectation of, hey, we lose 5 in a row. It's a relief thing, but we're not going around high-fiving everybody and going crazy and having a party. Now, I'm not saying they did. It's a different standard, Mo. But
you hit on, I think that's the biggest point in which and it's a great point. The standards is very low. To Dominique's call, this also shows you how enthusiastic they reportedly were after that win. Shows you where the standard is, Scott. And I think I said this 3 weeks ago that the Raiders and some people who cheer for the Raiders have to raise their standards for this football team. Why settle for a mediocre quarterback, a game-managing quarterback? Why settle for a head coach who may not be the best option? Why be over the top if it was over the top for a win after snapping a 10-game losing streak? Like you have to have higher standards. The Raiders are a commitment to excellence, right? And they're nowhere near that right now. And as you said, hopefully Tom Brady, when he walks in the door, he'll be able to raise the bar and say, we're not celebrating our third victory in mid-late December. We're not going to be happy with just being 500 or just getting to the playoffs. We expect to be great, and we're gonna do things, try things, take some swings with the expectation that we're striving for greatness, excellence, not mediocrity.
Right. That's why I always laugh too. And again, I laugh at it not to make fun of you, but I see Aiden O'Connell have a nice rushing game for his standards. And suddenly, I know some of it was a joke, calling him Michael Vick and all that kind of stuff. But then there's other people who let that convince them that, see, he could be the guy. No.
Oh my gosh.
Don't one game. He's also had really crappy games. That doesn't mean he's not a good backup quarterback. So higher standards. Amen. I agree. Okay.
That's not a shot at Jacob, by the way. That's not a shot at Jacob from Fresno. We're just saying that we don't think not a shot at Jacob from Fresno. If you're listening, Jacob from Fresno says not a shot at you.
Jacob, Mo is now really concerned with your emotional state. So
I just want to make sure Jacob hears me correctly. I don't want him to think I'm misquoting him because I hate when people misquote or misinterpret me. Yeah. So I understand where Jacob is coming from. So I just want to make it clear.
Absolutely. And we will, I think at the end of the season, Mo, we'll do a live show where we take some live calls because we can take live calls. We don't do it, obviously, because we record most of the time. But we'll take some live calls so we can have some really good discussions with you guys. We'll just devote a whole show to just calls on your take on the season, on all this kind of stuff. So it'll be fun. Cool. All right, we're going to get to our last caller. A regular caller, hasn't called in a while, actually, but I'm glad to see him back on the board here, which is John up in Oroville, California. Here is John.
Hey, Scott and Mo, it's John from Oroville, California. On Christmas night, fellas, and I want to thank you guys for all you do to entertain all of us fans out there. After opening presents and cooking the ham today and doing my thing, I got to come out to my Jeep and listen to your podcast and enjoy your takes on our situation and wanted to comment on that. A lot of the fans on Twitter and on social media are extremely upset about the win, and I have posted this on Twitter myself that we've got to realize these players, they battle their ass off all week to win a game on Sunday, and so they aren't enjoying the 10-game losing streak. They don't care about the draft order, and I'm not the first to say this, but we've got to remember that. They're there to win the games, man, and to see how happy they were after that win, to see the smile on Aiden's face at the end of that game, that was just priceless, man. And it made me happy, honestly, to see how happy the guys were. AP, his days are numbered, but I'm sure he was happy to get that win, too. We need a new coach, obviously, but going into the draft, and this hurts our draft status, so Would I have loved it if we played a great game and got hosed by the officials at the end so that we could still be the first pick? Sure. But it didn't happen, and the guys won the game, and good for them. And now we are where we are, and who knows what will happen the next 2 weeks. We could still end up in position to get one of these top quarterbacks. So I don't think there's any reason to panic. If we don't end up in position to get Sanders or Cam Ward, maybe we're lucky enough to get somebody like Ashton Gentry, however you pronounce that first name. He's a stud. You pair him up with Brock Bowers, and then you get somebody like Jackson Dart in the second round, or maybe Jalen Milroe, or, your best quarterback option in round 2. We've still got a possibility of coming out next year with a really great team after that draft. If we address a few things like running back, wide receiver, grab a quarterback to pair up with Aiden O'Connell, get one of those guys in the second round if you don't get Sanders. Last year we wanted a quarterback. We got Brock Bowers, a Hall of Famer. Things sometimes work out, and I'm of the opinion everything will work out. That's all I got. I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas. I'm excited to see what happens the rest of the way, and go Raiders.
There you go. John and Oroville. Hope you guys had a blessed Christmas up there too, my man. And Mo, what a great call to end on the show, because glass half full. And, a lot of times, and it's a great time of the year to do that, because we all have challenges in life. The Raiders have challenges in life. People forget these are professionals. They're just like you are a professional, whatever you do for a living. And I always use a sales example when I talk about NFL teams this time of the year. So stay with me on this, Mo, which is sales teams have goals, right? So let's say your goal for the month is 50,000 in sales, and you get to the last week or last few days of the month, and there's no way you're going to hit your 50,000. Does that mean you stop selling? No. They're professionals. They go out and they try to get as close as they can to what their expectation was at the beginning. And I think for Raiders and for NFL players, yes, they're not making the playoffs. Yes, they're not even going to get 5-6 wins maybe. But they're going to go out and do their best and try it. And so while I understand the fans' disappointment with draft picks and all that kind of stuff, that's the bottom line, is you always want to do your best. And you watch, and we said this, 5-6 weeks ago, Mo? Watch these guys, the guys who are playing hard, the guys that have not relented one bit. These are the players, especially if you're Tom Telesco, you're looking at and saying, okay, that's a guy we want to be in the silver and black next season and even longer.
And the other part about John's call, too, there's so much that could happen between now and April. I tried to get this point across in my Bleacher Report Live that while the Raiders are picking 6 right now, we don't know where they're going to end up. I think they're going to win this weekend, so I think it's going to push them further down the order. But even if they're 9th or 10th, I know it's depressing because you had your mind on a top quarterback, but who's to say they don't grab, as John said, Ashley DeJounte out of Boise State, the running back, and who's to say they don't find, they get their quarterback anyway of the future. We all, and I said this on the last show, we all have our opinions on these draft prospects, but as Raider fan 23 said, no one knows what's going to happen. The draft is a crapshoot. Yeah. You may find your franchise quarterback in round 2. While it's not a common thing, it's more common to find it in round 1. It doesn't mean it can't happen in round 2. Now, Raider fans are going to fire back at me and say, when have the Raiders have had good draft luck? And maybe it started with Brock Bowers this year. Maybe Tom Telesco and Brock Bowers are the omen to good things happening for the Raiders after a bunch of crap draft picks that they've made in recent years. Let's be positive. We're going into the new year. What's the saying? New year, new me? Yes. New year, new Raiders, new draft luck. Hopefully, and the Raiders are able to fill holes and still get their quarterback however they go about getting him in the offseason. Let's hope so. Cross your fingers.
Yeah, and I know it's hard because people have been waiting decades for that to happen, but, again, and I hate to put so much of the eggs in the basket of Tom Brady, but I feel like there is a new dawn in a direction. And Tom Brady's not guaranteed to succeed either. He's a great quarterback. We all know that. But at least that would be a different structure than you've seen in the past in the Raiders. They've had strong GMs, yes, go back to Reggie McKenzie, all this kind of stuff, but they've not had somebody who's going to come in and sort of do a lot of the things that fell to Mark Davis just by by the fact that there was no one else there. So we'll see how it goes. But I think that you definitely hit on some great stuff there, John. We appreciate the call as always. All right. That is going to do it for this edition of Silver and Black today. We appreciate the call. We appreciate everyone listening in. Mo, listen, we sit here the day after Christmas. Of course, we got another holiday with New Year's coming in next week. I know we'll be live here, myself and Murph, after the game. Tell everybody what you got going on with your Bleacher Report Live and anything else from a written perspective.
Bleacher Report Live on Sunday after the Saints game. I have a feeling the Raiders are going to win the game, so there are going to be a lot more unhappy people as far as the draft order is concerned. Also, check out my article on Sportsnot. It's outlining outside the box approach the Raiders are going to have to take to get their quarterback. So let's assume that the Raiders don't have a top 3 pick. They're going to have to get creative with their quarterback approach if they want to have an upgrade in that room. I outlined some of those options in that Sportsnot piece.
All right, there you go. Everything you need to do to keep up with Mo. Make sure you join us. Again, make sure you join us after the game. Myself and Murph from Raiders Fan Radio will have a quick live report after the Raiders beat the Saints. Yes, I'm picking the Raiders as well. Don't forget also, get that special 150% deposit bonus from the good people over at BetUS. Come bet the game and deposit up to $2,000, 150% bonus. YouTube 150 is the promo code. YouTube 150 is the promo code, and the video, of course, brought to you by the folks at BetUS. All right, I want to say thank you to our radio producer, our executive producer over there, Mark Bonilla in Las Vegas. Also, our producer at Audacy, that is Mr. Mike Robier. For Mo Moden, I am Skakel Branson. We'll see you after the game, and then we will also see you for our regular show on Tuesday. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your audio. Just look for Silver and Black today. Don't forget to rate and review. For Mo, I'm Skakel Branson. Take care, everybody, and have a great, great rest of your holiday season. Bye-bye now.